started walking. I actually walked 12,295 steps yesterday. After doing all that walking, I said, it's time for me to have something to eat. So I decided, I'm going to go in here and Shoney's. I can get me a big old salad. They got some healthy stuff on the salad bar. I don't go to Shoney's much anymore. It's not what it used to be. But I took caution to the wind, and so I went on into Shoney's. They know where I like to sit all the way in the back, not too far from the salad bar. I don't have to tell them. So I went in, they ushered me to my seat. And so as I was finishing up and coming out, and I actually needed to get a ride because I had to meet my son somewhere, so I called Minister Shinner, and I said, well, I think I can get to Virginia Street by the time you get to Virginia Street from 3rd Avenue. And as the Lord would have it, I got there right the time he got there, because I can move now. I got my wind back now. And so I walked down there, but while I'm checking out, Sister Shada, these two young men are in front of me. And we're waiting, and they're talking, and we're just waiting, and I'm checking my phone. Is Shinner going to beat me down? Am I going to be late? Am I going to miss my ride? And I'm wearing my mask as I do when I'm out in public. And all of a sudden, while we're waiting, there a young lady comes out of the restroom, and they did the chivalrous thing. They let her get in the line before us, and I'm still there waiting. And then all of a sudden, I hear one of these young men say to his compadre, well, I would go with you, but I just tested positive for COVID. I'm not a violent man, Sister Christy. I started to slap him. Right there on the spot, I say, man, are you kidding me? You know you done tested from COVID. You here in this restaurant, no mask on. You're walking all around. I was standing away from them. I said, I can't believe this. As I'm standing in the line just waiting to get out. Now my blood pressure went up. I said, Lord help me today. Let me get out of here. I don't want you to have to come to pick me up from downtown with the Charles Police Department. And so I just ushered, got myself on out there and got out of there. But just waiting is sometimes a difficult proposition. And now I'm waiting, and I hear something I didn't want to hear, and now I'm upset about having to wait in the first place. Y'all know how it is about to wait, don't you? Go to the doctor's office, they give 15 people an appointment at 10 o'clock. The same time as your appointment. It's worse at the dentist's office. So here's what they do, Brother Rick. They bring you in. They got these nice waiting rooms now. They got the television on. It's in color. They got magazine and newspaper. They want you to feel like you in your living room, like you're not waiting. But you know you're waiting. Then they will call you in, Elder Tyler, and they take you in the back, and they take you to an examination room. You think you're moving somewhere. No, they're just going to take you back in, and they're going to sit you back in their room, and they'll say the doctor will be in to see you in a few minutes, but you just still waiting. You're sitting there in the examination room, the next person to come in is maybe the nurse practitioner. Now, the nurse will come in, they're going to take your blood pressure, take your temperature, just go through some formality to make you feel like you're not waiting, but you're still waiting. And then after that, finally, 30 minutes later, after you done woke up from your little cat nap, the doctor walks in. You might get 5 minutes with him or her if you're lucky, and you spend well over an hour in many cases in there just waiting. But to get a good report, it's worth the wait. And if you get a good report, it ain't all that bad if you get a good report. It's only bad if the health insurance won't cover something they want you to do, or they send you to the pharmacist to pick up a prescription the way Dr. Stanton did me, and I almost had a heart attack when the woman said that it's going to be $2,250 to fill a prescription for a 3-month supply. She didn't want to tell me at first. She said, because you might have another heart attack, and we don't want you to have it right here. I know all the people at my pharmacy, but anyway, the doctors, nurses, they worked it out. And so they called me to come get my medicine. And the woman said, Reverend Morris, we think you can afford it this time. Just come on over and pick it up. So I went over to Sister Christy, and the medicine cost $10. Now I'm saying to myself, how did we go from $2,250 to $10? I said, I'll take it. I can afford that. It was worth the wait is what I'm trying to tell you. It was worth the wait for me to get that prescription filled for $10 that Dr. Stanton really thinks I need to be taking. Sometimes waiting isn't all that bad. It all depends on what you're waiting on. We're in this text. We got to look first at the context. This is a powerful text, Isaiah 40. You got to read the entire chapter to appreciate the text. in the text, what Isaiah does is he draws these incredible contrasts. Contrast between God and man. Contrast between earthly rulers and potentates and God. Contrast between God's infinite nature, God's eternality, and the finites of humanity. But he opens up with the compassion of God. Israel has often have been wayward, they've fallen away from the Lord. And Isaiah opens up with a word of encouragement to them in Isaiah chapter 40, basically by saying to them that they can be of good courage because God is going to comfort them. With the word of comfort. Comfort ye, my people, saith your God. Speak ye comfort to Jerusalem and cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she hath received of the Lord's hand double all for all of her sins. So God said, I've exacted the discipline I need to exact. Now I'm going to comfort you. I'm going to console you. I'm going to encourage you. Great attribute of God is God's comfort, God's consolation, that God can comfort us in all of our trouble and all of our difficulty. So he establishes God as a God of comfort, even after he's had to discipline and chastise his children. Look at verse 10 and 11. He says, behold, the Lord God will come with strong hand, and his arm shall rule for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his works before him. He shall feed his flock like a shepherd. He shall gather the lambs with his arms and carry them in his bosom, and shall gently lead those that are with young. God is a God of comfort. He comforts his flock. He gently leads them. He shows compassion when we're grieving, when our hearts have been broken, we're going through a difficult time. The Lord can succor us and encourage us and console us because God is a God of comfort. And so the great prophet Isaiah, who's often spewing out prophetic fire, he now spews out words to comfort the people of God, even though they are still recovering from their backslidden conditions. The other thing that Isaiah does in this text, as I said earlier, he draws this incredible contrast between man and between God. Look at what he says in verses 6 through 8. He says these words, the voice said, cry, and he said, what shall I cry? And this is Isaiah's prophetic word that would be fulfilled by John the Baptist. And in verse 5, he talks about the famous passage that Martin Luther King would often quote. Back up to verse 3. The voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for God. Every valley shall be exalted, every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crook shall be made straight, and the rough places plain, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. Then the voice said, cry, and he said, what shall I cry? Dr. King would often quote this passage about all flesh seeing the glory of the Lord. And so the voice says back to God, what shall I cry? And God then instructs the voice, articulate these words. I want man to understand how he looks through the lens of my spiritual eye. The voice said, and what shall I cry? Verse 6, and he said, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass, and all the goodliness thereof is as the flower of the field. The grass withereth, the flower fadeth, because the Spirit of the Lord bloweth upon it. Surely the people is grass. So he's contrasting the glory and the majesty and the splendor and the might of God with man and all of his fine regalia and all of his kingdoms and palaces, with all of the material trinkets that he has, with all the glories of this world. God looked at that and he says, man is nothing more than like the grass of the field. And his glory is nothing but like the flower. The flower fades away and it drops back to the ground and it disintegrates and goes back to the dust and the grass dies. And we're in that process, in that season now. I get just a little bit discouraged and somewhat depressed when this time of year starts to sit in. As I start to see the beauty of the green foliage that fills the mountainside, it starts to turn first in beautiful variegated colors of oranges and reds and browns, and it's a beautiful mosaic. And then a rain comes through in just an amount of days, and sometimes it seems hours. Everything turns brown. And it goes back to where it came from. It falls back to the ground, to go back to the dust from which it came. And that speaks to us as the human species, the crowning glory of God's creation, all of our majesty and all of our splendor and all of our glory, even Solomon arrayed in all of his majestic royal regalia. At the end of the day, it all goes back to the dust. So from dust we are, and from dust we return. So we contrast that with the glory and with the majesty of God. Look what he says in verse 12. Speaking of God, he says, who hath measured the waters in the hollow of his hand? All of the oceans, all the seas, all the rivers, and all the lakes, basically, owe their existence to the word of God. So God holds it all in his hand and meted out heaven with the span and comprehend the dust of the earth in a measure and weighed the mountains in scales and the hills in a balance. He's speaking of God and the majesty of creation, how it's all originates with him. He is the divine architect of the universe. His majesty compared to the weakness and to the frailty of mankind. He didn't contrast God's majesty and power and might to the nations of the world. Look at verse 15 and 17. Behold, the nations are as a drop of a bucket, and are counted as the small dust of the balance. Behold, he taketh up isles as a very little thing. And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beast thereof sufficient for a burnt offering. All nations before him are nothing, and they are counted to him as less than nothing and vanity. In contrast with the majestic king of the universe, when he looks at the nation of the world, the Soviet Union with all of its military might, and its entourage invading this small little independent nation of Ukraine, with all of its missiles and with all of its military power and all its military might, is nothing but a drop in the bucket when compared to God. The United States of America, the greatest militarily equipped nation in the history of the planet, with some of the finest technology of missiles and bombs and F-18s and fighter planes and smart missiles and drones and all types of things to kill people, not to mention the atomic and the hydrogen bomb. Nothing but a drop in the bucket. Nothing but dust on the scales of the balances of God's universe. Many of us got scales in our home. We dodge most of the time. We hide them so we can't find them because we don't want to get on them, because it's like the old TV show used to come on, To Tell the Truth. And so we start stripping down and taking off shoes and taking off clothes and pulling everything down so we can, before we get on this guy, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to tell the truth. Mine is right there in the bathroom, right near the sink, up in the corner where you can't hardly see it. But every now and then I say, I just got to face it. I just got to face it, so I'll pull it out. And I'll strip down to nothing but just my underdress, take my T-shirt off, weigh about 2 or 3 ounces. I'm trying to get this thing down as far as I can get it down. And then what I do, Sister Christy, I'll step on it and not look at it at first. And then say, by faith, I'm praying I'm going to be at least a couple of pounds under, at least not over. And then I look down in great despair. Great despair. And every now and then I move it to another side. Got the tiles. Well, maybe this wasn't quite balanced right. And I move it around, but in the end, it's always within a few ounces. And then I'll blow it off. Maybe there's some dust on it. And that's what Isaiah said. The nation is nothing more like the dust on the scale. Now, how much does dust weigh? They actually got instruments now in the scientific laboratories. They can measure the weight of dust, but it's not very much. The majesty of God. So even this fellow over in North Korea just launched that rocket, went 2,800 miles, jetted over Japan, and those people almost all had heart attacks, so they don't know what that madman is going to do. And immediately in response to that, we had to do a reconnaissance mission, so we sent up a bunch of planes to fly around up in the sky to let him know, man, we got some bigger bombs than you. We can blow you literally, what my mama used to say, to smithereens. But this fellow doesn't have enough sense to understand the doctrine of MAD, mutually assured destruction. That he cannot survive any type of atomic warfare. Now, Russia thinks that they can, and that's why Putin is so dangerous. He believes that maybe they could survive a nuclear war. Khrushchev didn't believe it back in the 60s. That's why when he came down to Cuba in the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, and some of y'all can remember, everybody was trying to figure out where's the closest fallout shelter. The closest we've ever been in history to an all-out nuclear war. Here we got nuclear missiles right down there in Cuba that could have hit Florida in no time and other parts of the United States of America. But John Fitzgerald Kennedy, probably his greatest act as the United States president, because of a very thin resume, really was he called Khrushchev's bluff. And Khrushchev backed down because Khrushchev believed in the idea of mutually assured destruction, that they might get theirs off first, but ours would be off pretty quickly, and Russia also would be eliminated. But all of this military might, all this military power, all these atomic and nuclear bombs, they're nothing but a drop in the bucket compared to the power of Almighty God, who could reach back into nowhere and grab hold to nothing and fling the universe into existence. That's the power and the majesty that Isaiah is trying to communicate to the people. And this God that we serve, he's the God that reigns over all of the creation. Look at verse 21 of Isaiah 40. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Had not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundation of the earth? It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers. Not little bitty old grasshoppers. Now, if you're from Fayette County, you call them hopper grasses. Some kind of, we got a way of turning stuff around backwards. I didn't realize it was supposed to be a grasshopper until I got in the 10th grade. I still call them hopper grasses. And stretch out the heavens as a curtain and spread them out as a tent. He's talking about the majesty of God. The majesty of God as compared to the might and the power of the nations of the earth are nothing more than a drop in the bucket. He wants the children of Israel to understand that this God that they serve has all the power. He can do whatever he wants to do, whenever he wants to do it. So this God is worth waiting on. That's what I'm trying to get with this. I said that waiting wasn't so bad. It all depends on what you're waiting on. So the children of Israel has been waiting for God to deliver them from this constant encroachment of oppression by their enemies, and they've been waiting for a long time, and Isaiah is wanting to encourage them to keep on waiting. The idea of waiting is to hold on to hope. When you still got hope, when you still believe that something is possible, when you still believe that things don't always have to be the way they are now, it causes you to endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. So Isaiah wants them to understand your God is a God of compassion and mercy and consolation. Your God, in contrast to the nations of the world and the powerful people of the world, he has no equal. He has no peer. He's God all by himself. Look at verse 25 through 27. I'll be through in just a couple of minutes. Talk about his greatness. To whom then will we liken me? Or shall I be equal? Who's equal to me? Who's in my league? Who is on my stage of my stature? I was sharing with the praise team earlier this morning. This past week, I think I saw the greatest middle school football game I've ever seen in my life. One of the greatest football games. It was my beloved Westside Panthers taking on the vaunted, and Westside Wolfpack, taking on the vaunted DuPont Panthers. Both teams were undefeated, and it's been wreaking havoc on other teams. And so I went to support the DuPont. I got some kids that know from DuPont also, but also a lot of kids on the West Side team. And so it was some game, brother. I'm talking about back and forth, back and forth. It was an irresistible force, immediately immovable object. The West Side Wolfpack, they run this spread offense, looked like Alabama, one of these major colleges. David Robinson Jr. is the best middle school quarterback I've ever seen. He can throw it, he can run it, he's tough on defense. But DuPont got this kid, Isaiah Claiborne, y'all remember that name. I'm talking about one of the best I've ever seen. Got hurt in the first half, wobbled off the field, came back in. The boy rushed the ball 27 times for 256 yards, and his last carry, he was as strong as the first one. I can't wait to the rematch. They're probably going to play again in a couple of weeks because DuPont, they're going to beat Sissonville, and Westside, they're going to take care of South Charleston. They'll be playing in the championship. It was something to watch. It reminded me of the old days in the fort at the Mount Hope Municipal Stadium when the Mustang would take the field and take on the Oak Hill Red Devils. Both teams played like life and death, ways and the balance. And what was so beautiful about the game, they played so aggressively, but it was perfect sportsmanship. There was no personal fouls. And after the game, they both were humble because they know they both had met their match. And they knew they'd probably meet again in a couple of weeks. It was quite refreshing. But in all of their might, all of their power they displayed, is one day they're going to be as old as me. And their get up and go will get up and gone. And all they will have is the memories of their greatness and of their grandeur. But our God never ages. He never loses any of his power. He never loses any of his grace. He never loses any of his ability and his finesse. Alzheimer's is not a problem. Multiple sclerosis can't play in. Dementia cannot be a problem. He can never forget any of his children, forget any of his children's name, forget any of their needs, because he is the omniscient, omnipotent, almighty, all-powerful God who's ever has surveillance, looking over and watching over his own and taking care of us. And that's what Isaiah wanted them to remember. So you can wait on him. Amen. He's worth waiting on. He's worth keeping your hope and keeping your faith, even when you're tossed to and fro like a cork in the midst of the sea. This God sees your destitute. He sees your desperate situation, and he can deliver, and he can protect you and get you safely to the other side. So let me wrap this thing up, because I got to see the kickoff. My boys, they'll be looking for me at about 2:45. The conclusion of the matter. This is what Isaiah had to say. Hast thou not known, verse 28, did nobody tell you, have you never heard about the everlasting God, the ancient, from ancient God, from infinity to infinity God, from vanishing point to vanishing point God, the uncaused cause? Have you not heard about him, the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth? He does not faint. He does not get weary. There's no searching of his understanding. He doesn't need a counselor. He don't need a psychiatrist. He does not need a therapist. He's God all by himself. Nothing worries him. Nothing ever stresses him out. He's never frustrated. He's never overwhelmed. This is the God that you serve. And he's a generous God. He giveth power to the faint. When you are spiritually exhausted, spiritually malnourished, when the monkey gets on your back and you think you're going to collapse under the weight and the pressure and the vicissitudes of life, when you just don't think you can go on any further, he creates a spiritual oasis in the midst of a desert. He restores your soul. He will refresh you. He will anoint your head with oil. He'll lift up your downtrodden, troubled spirit. He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might, he'll increase your strength. Even the youths, even my beloved West Side Wolfpack, even the vaunted DuPont Panthers. After a hard-fought game, a lot of those boys took those linemen, they was pulling on the knee pad. They was bending over trying to catch their breath. They just 13 years old, 12 and 13, some of them just 11. But they get tired out there. Even the youth get weary. Even young people in our society today, they're weary. They hear about all the violence. They hear about the substance abuse. They know about domestic violence. They know about child abuse and neglect. They've been robbed of what's supposed to be a gift of life to them, and that's the childhood of innocence. And so they have to deal with adult things even while they're children. And some of them are discouraged, and some of them are depressed, and some of them are melancholy, and they're losing faith in all the institutions in the society. They don't see people fighting for them and standing up for them and trying to deal with some of the things that will crush their little spirit. So even the youth shall faint and be weary. And some of them are fainting, some of them are giving up, and they're giving up on life before they give life a chance. They've seen so much bad for so long, they're giving up on education as being a ticket to break the cycle of poverty and dependence. They're giving up being a solid, good citizen, because if you do that, God will give you favor in the eyes of somebody. And you don't need everybody to help you, and you don't need everybody to like you. You just need a couple people. Sometimes it's just one. Just one person is all it takes, who has the right influence and the right stature that can open the door for you. So we keep telling young people, you keep doing the right thing, because God is watching you. And not only is God watching you, then God can bring you to the attention of somebody that can help you and that can encourage you. I'm almost through. But they wait, Sister Christy. When the youth have gotten tired and weary and faint, when the middle-aged have gotten tired and weary and faint, when the stock market drops, even some of the most wealthy people in this country, they get tired and they get weary, because their faith is built on nothing less than Wall Street and the greed and the wealth that's created there, and nothing less. And so their faith is shaken. And even some of these big athletes find their faith shaken when one play results in them having an injury and they can never take the field again or the court again, and the life is changed just like that. They're going to have their names up in lights to being a mere footnote. Doesn't take long for people to get you. When you can't run anymore, when you can't jump, when you can't throw, when you can't perform in that three-ring circus that we call the NCAA and the NFL, when you can't do it anymore, nobody cares nothing about you. And those pro football players, they're finding that out. When Dr. Bennet Omalu, 20 years ago, did an autopsy on the brain of Mike Webster, that great center for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he understood and brought to the nation's attention what football, and particularly professional football, was doing to these guys. And the NFL tried to destroy him. Tried to destroy him. And he had to leave Pittsburgh and move to California and start a new practice out there. And his boss told him, he said, Bennet, you're right. What you're saying is right. Your research is right. It's irrefutable scientific, but do you understand what you're doing? Bennet's from Africa. He ain't know nothing about no NFL. He thought you're supposed to protect people from danger. He says, you're taking on the National Football League. They got a day reserved for them. It's called Sunday. It used to belong to the church. It now belongs to the National Football League, and people come and worship in these shrines we call stadiums. But Omalu went ahead and pushed forward. Dr. Omalu put him off to the trash heap. They resurrected him last week. That little quarterback down in Miami, and they put that young man back on the field, knowing he had a concussion the week before. Dr. Omalu went on TV on Monday, the week before the game they played. On Sunday, he said if he gets hit in the head, he's going to get another concussion. And he says, and it might kill him. Omalu came out after Tua got the second concussion and said he should never play football again. They can say what they want to say about me. He said, I know him right. You know what he told them? He says, the NFL don't care nothing about their men. When I try to present them 20 years, he said, that's a business. That's entertainment. They better care about themselves. And they better take care of themselves, and they better decide not some trainer and not some doctor when they'll go back out on the field. But we wait on the Lord. He'll renew our strength. And lastly, he says, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. We got strength. It's just like having a battery in your automobile. Just because you get up one morning and it won't start, it doesn't mean the battery is necessarily dead. It doesn't mean a cell in the battery died. There may be something that's pulling power you don't know about. You left a light on, something like that. Fan belt might be loose. Over time, the battery has lost some of its juice. Now, if you go to a lot of these stores, they're going to sell you a new battery. But the first thing you do is check all the belts, make sure nothing is on, and get you a set of jumper cables. And find somebody with a good battery. That's all it takes. You still got some strength in the battery that's in your car. And if you're jumping, and if the alternator is working right, it will recharge itself. That's what Isaiah said. He said, don't you know when God created you, God gave you a battery cell, spiritual battery cell inside of you. It's a lifetime battery cell. Every now and then, the pressure, the stress, the problem, the concern, the frustration, the disappointment, the heartache, the grief, and the trauma, it can cause your battery to be drained. But you still got a little bit of strength, and all you got to do is plug that thing into God's divine power source. Keep going to church. Keep praying. Keep witnessing. Keep testifying. Keep praying. Stay in contact with your close spiritual friend. And one day, God is going to renew your strength. And you're going to mount up wings like eagles. You know, an eagle can fly higher than any other bird. An eagle can fly 40 miles an hour. An eagle can then dive down in the water and snatch fish out of the water. God said, you're going to renew your wings. You're just not going to get some strength. You're going to do something you've never done before. You're going to leap tall spiritual buildings in a single bound. You think that your battery is bad. You think that it is dead. God is going to renew your strength. And in your latter years, God is going to do something through you that he didn't do in your younger years, because when you're young, you think it's your strength. You think it's your intelligence, your finesse, your ability. But when you get old, when you start getting tired and weary, when you got to pull yourself out of the bed in the morning, put one leg out at a time, reach for your glasses so you can see something, then reach for the pill bottle so you can take a handful of them so you don't feel something, and then get your tired, weary self up and try to make it to the restroom before you have an accident. Oh, y'all know what I'm talking about. They talk about that the legs ain't the first thing to go. The first thing to go is the bladder. It will stop you in the middle of a sentence. The last thing I do before I come up and preach is go downstairs, so I don't have to leave the pulpit in the middle of the sermon. So when we get old and tired, we start forgetting certain things. Our hard drive ain't turning as fast as it can. You know, whatchamacallit, hickey-do, do funny. That's what Mama used to do. You know what I'm talking about, hickey-do, do funny, whatchamacallit. What are you talking about? Well, it happens. But even then, God can work in and through us to witness to somebody, to testify to somebody, to pray for somebody that's sick, to pray with someone who's lost a loved one, to give them strength and encouragement. And through our tired, weary soul, God is still blessing people. And that's why we wait on him. That's why we wait on him. That's why we wait on him. That's why we wait on it. We wait on it. We wait on it. Because he's going to show up on time. Amen. I'm out of my time. I thank you for yours. Let's pray together, shall we?